fearsome reputation, cops wear ski masks to hide their identity. Strewn among coffee cups and cigars are piles of cryptic texts. Some contain coded references to business transactions. But one text stands out. It's a list typed in plain Italian. The heading reads, "I swear to be faithful to La Cosa Nostra. Should I betray, my flesh will burn." Police realize they have stumbled upon the Mafia's rules of membership. The press will dub them the 10 Commandments of the Mafia.
Deve portare rispetto, non ci si può presentare da soli ad un altro amico nostro. Non si frequentano né taverne né citi. Si è il dovere, in qualsiasi momento.
The commandments hark back to the Mafia's fledgling years in the lemon groves of rural Sicily. Legend has it the Mafia was born of revolution. In the 1800s, a tight-knit band of landowners offered protection to local people from oppressive Spanish rule. But the Mafia soon discovered that protection is an easy way to make money. When the Spanish king left, the Mafia turned to crime. In the early 1900s, America opens its shores to the poor, the weak, and the hungry. Hidden among millions who seek a better life in the New World, the Mafia arrives too. By now, it's an underground tribe with its own codes and rituals. Members are clannish and secretive. They talk in hushed tones of Cosa Nostra, this thing of ours. That's why Commandment number 1 sets out who can and can't belong.
Chi non può entrare a far parte di Cosa Nostra. Chi ha un parente stretto nelle varie forze dell'ordine. Chi ha tradimenti sentimentali in famiglia. Chi ha un comportamento pessimo e che non tiene.
You have to be invited to join the Mafia. Outsiders need not apply.
You know, it's always best to be proposed to the life by somebody who is already in the life. And that normally would be a blood relative, or preferably would be a blood relative, because then, you know, you come from good stock and they know your background, they can trace you all the way back.
The commitment demanded is total.
Once you come into that life, you're allegedly a new creation in the life, and everything starts from that point on. So, you know, when you take that oath, you're in it forever.
Throughout the Mafia's history, the main rule of admission is a simple one. You have to be Sicilian. Even Al Capone, arguably the world's most notorious mobster, was barred from full Mafia membership because he had no ties with Sicily. Michael Franzese was born to the mob. His family is Sicilian. His father, Sonny, is a high-ranking member of the New York Colombo crime family. Sonny wants a different life for his son.
My dad didn't want me to enter the life. He wanted me to go to school, be a professional, and I was on the road to becoming a doctor. I was a pre-med student at Hofstra University in New York.
But when Dad is jailed on racketeering charges, Michael finds himself irresistibly sucked back into the family business.
In my second or third year in college, I kind of got close to the boss at that time, Joe Colombo, and his sons, and they were kind of telling me, you know, what are you doing going to school? If you don't get get on the street and make some money, your dad's going to die in prison. And
Franzese spends the next 2 years learning how to be a mobster. It's a tough initiation.
It's a very violent life, and you see things and you hear things, and if you're on call to do something, you got to be on call to do it. And it's all part of that kind of pledge period that you're in.
Despite his impeccable mob ties, Franzese faces the test posed by Commandment number 1. His name comes before a meeting of the Crime Commission, the mob's ruling council in New York. The commission is made up of the bosses of the 5 most powerful mafia clans in America. Linked by powerful ties of kinship and brotherhood, the mafia call their clans families. Each of New York's 5 families is named after its original leader: Bonanno, Colombo, Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese. Now, their successors consider the fate of aspiring members.
Do you have any objections? Maybe a guy's not worthy, maybe he has something in his past, maybe he was a snitch at one time. And so that goes around and circulates throughout all the families, and hopefully you pass inspection, so to speak. But that's kind of the security that they use.
With the 5 families' approval, Francis is finally about to be inducted, or made.
I got a call from my captain, and he said, I need you here at 9 o'clock that evening. It happened to be Halloween night, 1975. And he said, be on time and wear a suit.
Becoming a made man means taking part in a ritual over 100 years old.
Boss was seated at the head of like a horseshoe configuration. The underboss and the consigliere were to his left and right, and all the captains in our family were alongside them. I held out my hand. He took a knife, cut my finger, some blood dropped on the floor. When I cupped my hands, he took a picture of a saint and lit it aflame. It didn't hurt, it burned quick, it was just symbolic. And he said, tonight, Michael Francis, you are being born again into a new life, into La Cosa Nostra. And if you violate what you know about this life or betray your brothers at any time, then you're gonna die and burn in hell like the saint is burning in your hands. Do you accept? Yes, I do.
Francis is now a mafia soldier. He's on the lowest rung of the ladder. Above him stand capos, or captains, an underboss, and the boss himself. Made men call themselves men of honor. It's a title designed to command respect.
Within your community, within your neighborhood, among your peers, if you were a made guy, that really meant something.
Philadelphia crime reporter George Anastasia is from a Sicilian family and grew up in a traditional mafia neighborhood. Steeped in the culture of Cosa Nostra, he rubbed shoulders with the mob on a daily basis.
At least within a certain community, it meant something to be a man of honor. Especially if you're an immigrant and you don't have a lot of opportunities and you reach the top of your field. Look at me, I'm a man of honor.
Mobsters lived up to the man of honor title.
As a kid growing up, you see the guy with nice clothes or driving a nice car, and he takes bets and he's friendly and he'll give you $1 when you walk by, that kind of stuff. You didn't think about the treachery and the violence and the thuggery that I realize now is a major part of what all this is about.
During the 1980s, Michael Francis rises through the ranks of the Colombo family. According to one magazine, he's among the top 20 most powerful mobsters in the U.S. But during his rise, the mafia undergoes a change. The mafia's business is expanding, and that means involving outsiders. The rules of membership begin to relax. The mafia begins to induct associates, men who do business with the organization, but who do not qualify for membership.
Guys, made guys or proposed guys because they were making money with them and didn't really know their background too well, didn't delve into it too well.
The ticket into the mob is no longer family origin. It's money. In Philadelphia, Ron Previte is a good earner and of Sicilian origin.
I always called myself a general practitioner of crime. I did everything there is. I didn't specialize in anything. I once told somebody I tried to commit a felony every day. That was what I did. I was a moneymaker.
In 1993, the burly Previte catches the eye of Philadelphia mob boss John Stanfa. Without ceremony, Big Ron is drafted into the mob.
We didn't have an induction ceremony. Stanford told me a bunch of rules. Treat the other members with respect. We won't fool around with somebody else's wife. Things of that nature. Things like I can now form a crew and, nobody was supposed to go up against me. I'm a made guy. Nobody can hit me.
Previte is now part of Stanfa's inner circle, but there's a problem. Although his Sicilian heritage qualifies him for membership, Previte is an ex-cop, a fact that Stanfa decides to ignore.
That was his mistake.
John Stanfa is breaking one of the key commandments of the Mafia. Anyone connected to the police cannot be a part of Cosa Nostra.
He's someone that was a policeman, whether a good policeman or a bad policeman. It's not supposed to be a member of the mob. It's against their rules.
Crooked or not, Previte is still a cop at heart. He feels no allegiance to the Mafia. Within 2 years, he's wearing a wire for the FBI.
And yes, I did that. I wore the wire. I gathered information, and I testified in court. I had no compunctions about being a rat. The word don't bother me.
The mob's need to involve outsiders in its business leaves it vulnerable to the law. But the Mafia has another commandment that aims to build the ultimate firewall for a secret society. The Mafia's 10 commandments aim to protect the clan from outsiders, especially cops and informers.
Non ci si può presentare da soli ad un altro amico nostro, se non è un terzo a farlo.
There's always a middleman, but if you are just an associate off the street, you're not talking to the captain, never. And if you walked up to him to talk to him, he'd walk away.
The second commandment contains an implicit threat. Your life is on the line for every introduction you make.
The person who makes the introduction is ultimately responsible for the person they introduce. So if that person goes bad, it goes dirty on them, the person who made the introduction pays the price for that.
Personal introduction is the lifeblood of Mafia business. At its height in the 1970s, the FBI estimates a Mafia membership of over 3,000 made men nationally, with up to 25,000 associates. To guard against eavesdropping cops, most Mafia business is done face-to-face.
The safest method of communication was a personal meet in a park, quite empty, or walking around the block. Usually no more than 2, maybe 3, but never in large groups. And conversations sometimes were in a foreign language, usually Italian, depending on who it was and their respective backgrounds.
Despite meetings being held on the move, mobsters call them sit-downs, a throwback to the days before police wiretaps forced them outside. There's usually a lot to discuss. Different families do business side by side in the same neighborhoods, jostling each other while chasing the coin.
It was kind of whoever got there first got there. In other words, if the Gambinos happened to be doing a lot in Manhattan, I wouldn't have to get out of there because that was their territory. It wasn't geographical.
Because there is no turf, encounters between rivals are frequent. The sit-down resolves conflicts before they turn violent. According to the commandments, made members who know each other by reputation but who have not formally met must be introduced by a third party.
If I didn't know another made guy, we had never met, we'd have to have a third member of the family, either one, his or mine, that knew the two of us. And he would introduce us by saying, Michael, amiga nostra, or a friend of ours, so-and-so. And once we were formally introduced, then we could discuss as made guys. But you couldn't go up to somebody, even though you knew he was made and he knew you were made, you couldn't go up to him and introduce yourself as a made guy, no.
Now in witness protection, this former Bonanno soldier uses the alias Tony.
When you say he's a friend of ours, that means that he's made. He's a friend of mine means that you're an associate or that you have nothing to do with us whatsoever. And that's just basically telling, if you're talking to a made guy and you're having a conversation and somebody walks up and you said, this is a friend of mine, if they're talking about anything specific, they're gonna stop in front of him.
This rule was designed to block cops from getting inside the Mafia. Former New Jersey state cop Fred Martins spent 6 years undercover trying to build a persona the mafia would trust.
The real thing that they were concerned about is who you were. That's why I say how difficult it was to get into a mob family.
For cops looking to bust the mob, the only hope is a formal introduction.
The most important thing was that you were vouched for by somebody, that somebody knew you, that somebody said he's an okay guy. Without that, you didn't get anywhere.
In the late 1970s, the DEA begins targeting a Sicilian mafia heroin distribution ring. Agents dubbed the case the Pizza Connection, because the Sicilians smuggled the drugs in pizza ingredients through restaurants across the country. DEA agent Frank Panessa takes on the task of penetrating the mafia crew behind the operation.
Sicilian heroin was being distributed all over the United States, all over the world actually, and the people that I was involved in, they were bringing in $1 million a day, every day. And nobody was into them because it was such a secret society.
Agent Panessa knows the key to infiltrating the highly secretive Sicilian mafia is an introduction from a made man, also known as a wise guy. Someone wise in the ways of our thing.
We had arrested 2 wise guys in Philadelphia and told them that, hey, either you cooperate with us or you're going to go to jail. And so they said, well, we're not going to give you anybody in the mob in Philly. And so we said to them, well, how about the Sicilians?
The Philly wise guys agree to introduce Panessa to 2 Sicilian heroin dealers, Wallo Laporta and Alberto Ficalore, seen here with Panessa in DEA surveillance pictures. Panessa must convince the pair he is a genuine man of honor. At a meeting in a South Philly restaurant, he begins his dangerous undercover role.
When the food came out, the wise guys served me first. And the Sicilians looked at that, and to men of honor, that means something. You know, the respect that they were showing me. They knew both of them were wise guys, so I must be somebody of greater importance. When I needed a drink, the wise guys would jump up right away and get me a drink.
The introduction goes well for the DEA. The deliberate betrayal of made men by other made men is a major breach of mafia protocol. Panessa gets to work exploiting it.
Months after that, I says, I'm into white powder. So the Sicilian said to me, well, why don't you tell us? We control all the powder. He says, who are you getting it from? So thank God I was in another undercover role in New York, buying off a wise guy in New York, and he hadn't been arrested yet. So I says, oh, I'm getting it from this guy in the Bronx, and I gave him the name, and he says, oh, he's one of our customers. He says, you don't have to go to him anymore, you go directly to us. And that's how it started. I was able to purchase heroin. My first heroin buy was for $85,000. And I think when they walked away from that particular buy, they felt good and they figured, well, this guy is legit.
The Pizza Connection investigation breaks up a massive drug distribution ring. In just 9 years, the mafia has smuggled heroin worth $1.6 billion. When the busts go down, Panessa's Sicilian contacts, now aware he's an undercover agent, ask to see him in their prison cell.
I figured, well, you know, what are they going to say? Maybe there's going to be a threat. But they were very cordial. And Paolo said, you know, you were a gentleman. In all our transactions, there were business transactions.
But the meeting ends with a chilling warning.
He says, you don't have to fear us in any way, you know. He says, the people that introduced you to us have to be held accountable.
Panessa gets the message. He wastes no time in whisking the cooperating Philly wise guys into witness protection. The 2 mobsters escape the wrath of the mafia. Once you join the mafia, it expects to own you, heart, body, and soul. The Ten Commandments make sure of it.
Si è il dovere, in qualsiasi momento, di essere disponibile.
There is no vacation time in the mafia. There is no sick leave in the mafia. There is no 8-hour day in the mafia.
After his initiation in 1975, Michael Franzese is now a soldier for the Colombo crime family in New York. His captain, or capo, gives him the lowdown on what lies ahead.
When I was proposed into the life, I was told that I was on call to serve the family 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that meant, in the very words the boss used at that time, is if my mother was sick and she was dying, and I was at her deathbed, and the family called me to service, I had to leave my mother's side and come and serve the family, because the family was number one in our lives from that day forward.
Franzese now faces an endless round of cruising the streets. He has to come up with money-making schemes to share with his boss, or else. It's the way the mob works.
You had to play by the rules, and if you didn't, and if you weren't known as a hustler and a guy that, followed the rules and followed orders and a guy that you can rely on, you kind of put on the shelf. And that's, to me, that was almost as bad as any other consequence that could happen.
When Franzese is called for Cosa Nostra duty, there are no excuses. He has to drop everything.
I certainly couldn't say, hey, I'm having fun with the kids right now, or I'm with my wife, whatever it was, you got to drop everything and go. And the best policy I followed is I didn't make an excuse. I mean, unless there was some real emergency, I just dropped and went.
But one day, despite the utmost care, Franzese misses a meeting scheduled by his seniors by 10 minutes. After chewing him out, his boss reschedules.
So the next day, I was called again, told to meet, it was kind of like our headquarters at the time, and to be there at 3 o'clock. I got there at 3, and I was told to wait outside in front, they were going to pick me up. Well, come 5:30, nobody showed up. I wasn't moving. I stood there. And it was about 6:45, I remember. The boss and the captain drove by and said, "You got the message?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Go home."
Franzese is lucky to have gotten off with just a warning. He's never late for a meeting again. For mob associates who are lower down the pecking order, there are no second chances. Henry Hill, immortalized in the movie Goodfellas, is a former hijacker for the Lucchese family. As an associate, Hill must demonstrate his commitment on a daily basis.
Jimmy called me up, Paulie called me up. Come and meet me at the airport diner and wear a tie. I mean, make sure you got, a couple of pistols with you. Gotta go. I'm on call all the time, like a doctor. You're on call all the time. No matter what it was dig a hole or put a bullet in somebody's head. That's the way it was.
Hill is running with a crew that shoots first and asks questions after.
Tom used to put notches in his pistol every time he used to kill somebody. Hey, look, I got 27, I got 32 notches. I mean, that's how sick these guys were.
He knows that tardiness will put his life at risk.
Yeah, and you made an appointment with those people, you better keep it. And don't. I mean, I seen John Gotti whack a guy with a bat because the guy didn't show up for an appointment,
Being late shows disrespect. Even more, it signals unreliability. In the mafia, you have to know whom you can count on. The mafia's need for loyalty extends even into mobsters' most intimate affairs.
Non si guardano mogli di amici nostri.
It was a strict code that you wouldn't mess with another one's wife or daughter or anybody close to that made person's family. I mean, a made guy would not do that. I mean, he'd have to be out of his mind.
The penalties for breaking this commandment are severe.
It's supposed to be death, but it's been done. And sometimes the other guys got killed.
The male culture in the mafia has always made a show of respect for its wives, but this commandment is likely rooted in a practical need.
Were there rules? Yeah. You're not supposed to fool around with somebody else's wife? Of course. But is that because it's a moral choice, or is it because it creates instability within an organization and you don't want two guys fighting over a woman? You want those two guys out making money for you. So, you know, there's a logical reason for these rules, separate and apart from honor and morality. It's about the stability of the organization and the goals of the organization. Even though they're called the commandments and they appear to have some kind of basis in morality, it really was about business.
True to the traditional codes of honor, dalliances between made men and the wives of other mobsters are surprisingly rare. Colombo capo Michael Francis scrupulously avoided any possibility of being caught in a compromising position.
My own personal policy, if I went to visit another made guy and he wasn't home and his wife was there, I wouldn't go in the house. I mean, I wouldn't even enter inside because you never know, you know?
The mafia models itself on the extended family, and, like most families, Cosa Nostra is fueled by gossip. In a world of sit-downs and whispered conversations, rumor is rife. If a mobster does have an affair with another mobster's wife, it soon becomes common knowledge.
It's like water cooler, you know, in an office, basically, you know. And no matter what you did, someone's gonna find out about it anyway.
Fooling around with the wife of a superior is considered suicidal by soldiers and associates. But for senior members, a liaison with the wife of someone of lower rank carries far less risk.
I remember a wiretap we had, and you hear one guy say to another guy, "I want you to go to such and such a place. Call me when you're leaving." Okay? About 20 minutes later, the guy gets a call and he says, "I'm on my way out the door." He says, "Okay, now it should take you about 4 hours to get, 2 hours down and 2 hours back." He says, "Yeah, I'll let you know when I get down there," and I'm heading back. So about 15 minutes later, there's a call to the guy's apartment, and you hear the guy say to the wife, "Did he leave?" And she says, "Yeah." He says, "I'll be right over. Don't even put any underwear on." So the rules are broken quite a bit.
Perhaps the most important commandment is written between the lines. There's one rule for the boss, quite another for those below him. As the next commandment decrees, underlings just have to suck it up.
You don't make complaints about the boss. It's not smart. No matter what it is, you keep quiet and that's it.
The criminal underworld is built on lies. Yet the mafia's commandments demand that underlings tell the truth, especially when it's the boss who's asking.
Quando si è chiamati a sapere qualcosa si dovrà dire la verità.
You weren't supposed to lie to him, you know, or tell a little white lie even.
I don't know, I only told the truth when it was in my favor. But if it wasn't gonna go the right way, I lied like a bastard.
Telling lies is a part of life on the street. Lies protect you from the cops. Lies can boost your reputation. They can save your life.
You know, I had plenty of times my captain told me, "Hey, lie, don't admit to this, don't admit to anything." My father told me growing up, "Don't ever admit to anything, keep your mouth shut." So, it's part of the life.
First of all, to be a mob guy, you don't tell the truth. Your whole life is built around fictions as a mob guy. So the reality is that truth doesn't really matter in their world, okay? Doesn't matter.
But knowledge is power. Bosses can only keep on top if they know what's going on.
Mob guys lie to their bosses just like everybody lies to their bosses, okay? Mob guys deceive their bosses, they deceive their underlings, okay?
Soldiers and associates are supposed to share their hard-earned loot with their superiors. Unsurprisingly, they don't want to. In the mafia, truth is a moving target. Bosses expect their soldiers to lie. They put their trust in those who they think will lie to them the least.
If you go to a sit-down, and it's two guys and a captain, Say the captain knows one guy for 30 years, and he knows the other guy for 2 years. No matter what the guy says that he knows for 2 years, he's gonna be wrong.
Sometimes the boss's lie-detecting radar lets them down. From 1981 to 1987, Colombo family capo Michael Francis runs a lucrative gasoline tax scam. Francis sets up companies selling gas wholesale. By law, the companies are liable for tax of up to 35 cents a gallon. Francis simply doesn't pay it.
How did we get away with it? Very simple. The government was very archaic in collecting their money. If you didn't pay them after the first quarter and send in a report, they would contact you by mail. You know, now remember, now every day that goes by, the register is ringing. That money's coming in every single day. Long story short, you could string them out for about 9 to 10 months before they come down. They're gonna do an audit. They're gonna get mad at everybody. By that time, office is closed. You're using the next company. And it was just a daisy chain. We just kept going from one license to another. And we did this for 7 years, and they just couldn't catch up to us.
At the height of his operation, Francis was selling 500 million gallons of gasoline a month.
We were pulling in between $8 and $10 million a week in gasoline tax money, so it was a lot of money.
But Francis's bosses suspect he's not giving them a fair cut. They summon Francis to a meeting.
I had to meet this guy Jimmy on 18th Avenue and was late, about 11 o'clock at night. And I'll be honest with you, you know, I'm sitting in a passenger seat, Jimmy's driving, I got somebody behind me. I'm pretty nervous. I don't know if this is gonna be my last ride or not with everything that was going on. I'm saying, what the heck do these guys think that's going on? When I got out of the car and went into that room, and when that door was gonna open, I can vividly remember, I didn't know if that was gonna be the last thing that I saw.
Francis knew that if his bosses thought he was lying, they wouldn't hesitate to kill him.
You know, we heard, Michael, maybe you're making more money than you bring it in, and, you know, you got any ideas of, you know, being your own guy and a family? And I said, this is all nonsense. What are you talking about? I said, you got any proof? Bring it forward. I said, I'm making more money than anybody ever made for this family. I said, I'm not threatening you guys in any way. If the guy that I'm partners with gets in trouble, he doesn't know anybody, I'm the only guy he can take down. I said, this is a win-win situation for you guys, and I'm being questioned on this. And that's basically what I said. And I said, there's no truth to it whatsoever. And there wasn't any.
Francis managed to win over his audience. He was off the hook.
So, you know, oh, yeah, okay, great, everything's good. You know, he left, we kissed, we hugged. But it made an impression on me. Didn't sit well with me.
For Francis, it was a watershed moment. From this point on, he begins to have doubts about his devotion to our thing. But of course, he doesn't say a word.
And that's kind of how my path changed.
The mafia is built on a strict hierarchy, held together by respect.
I mean, it was basically set up just like any major corporation.
Whoever the boss is, you must bow to his authority.
And mob guys do expect to be respected when they're dealing with underlings.
The next commandment is all about respect for rank. When that breaks down, it often has fatal consequences.
Si rispettano in maniera categorica gli appuntamenti.
Philadelphia, the 1990s. The city's mafia family is leaderless. A new generation stands poised to take control. 31-year-old Skinny Joey Merlino heads a faction the newspapers call the Young Turks. He and his crew have deep Philadelphia roots.
They were the sons and the nephews and the cousins of the Scarfo organization. They were loyal to one another. You ask them about these commandments, that meant nothing to them. The loyalty was the guys they went to grade school with.
Merlino expects to inherit the boss's mantle, but the commission, the mob's ruling council in New York, doesn't agree. It decides to back a more mature candidate, 53-year-old John Stanfa. Stanfa has lived in Philly for over 20 years, but he's from Sicily. He's not a Philadelphia native. New York sees Stanfa as a safe pair of hands, but the Merlino faction resents his appointment.
There are certain mob bosses that don't get the respect that they should get. And he was seen kind of as an outsider, and the homegrown mob guys had no respect for him. In fact, they basically took him on, okay?
Things are made worse by a clash of style. Merlino and Stanfa have very different ideas about what a boss should be. Stanfa keeps a low profile. He runs a pizza joint by day and the rackets by night.
Stanfa was from Sicily. He was an old greaser, an old mustache Pete, you know? He wasn't very flamboyant, but he was mafioso through and through.
By contrast, Merlino loves publicity. He hires a cameraman to record these behind-the-scenes glimpses of his daily routine.
Joey wasn't a traditional boss, so to speak. Joey liked to gamble. Joey liked the nightlife. Joey liked to go out.
When Stanfa makes Joey Chang Cinglini a Merlino sidekick, his underboss, the Merlino group gets angry. They see the appointment as a move to split their ranks. Stanfa has made Joey Chang a target. March 2nd, 1993. At 5:58 a.m., an FBI surveillance camera picks up a car pulling up outside the luncheonette that serves as Joey Chang's base. Inside, a wiretap records what sounds like a scene of carnage. Unknown gunmen shoot Joey Chang 5 times. Chang is hit in the head, neck, and chest. Amazingly, he survives. No one is charged for the shooting. Stanfa sees the hit as a challenge to his authority. As boss, he must uphold the chain of command. He calls Tommy Gambino, a leading member of the Mafia's crime commission in New York. The pair speak in a Sicilian dialect, but by now, the FBI is well on the trail. This is the English transcript of the conversation, voiced by actors.
These guys are a bunch of louses. I just want to put their heads taken off. To tell you the truth, they're trying to kill. We do not have each other, then what do we have? Now, if we can commit to give the happiness, whatever do, the only thing they need it are unknown souls. Like I said, we're at your disposal. Whatever you need.
But Gambino is blowing smoke. The commission doesn't interfere in disputes within families.
The notion of a franchise probably best characterizes what the Mafia was about here in America. It wasn't a corporation in the sense that the headquarters out of New York or wherever controlled everything. They didn't. They basically made that person, sanctioned that person as the boss, and then it was up to that person to run that family.
Stanfa realizes he has to make the next move on his own. On August 5th, 1993, a Stanfa gunman spots Merlino walking with Joey Chang's brother, Michael. Michael Cianglini dies at the scene. Merlino escapes with a flesh wound. The Philly mob braces itself for war.
It was a bad time, you know. I didn't even sleep in my bed. I was sleeping on the floor. I put a couple pillows in there because you never know when a bomb was going to come through the window. It was just a bad time.
3 weeks go by. It's 8 a.m., August 31st, 1993. Rush hour. Stanfa and his son Joe are taking the expressway into downtown Philadelphia. Behind the wheel is Fred Aldrich, another of Stanfa's bodyguards.
We knew there was going to be retaliation, just how and when. So you're always looking in your rearview mirror and your two side mirrors, all the time. And I picked up this van, and I just didn't like the looks of it. And it caught my eye. And all of a sudden, I seen the guns start flashing. And I said, John, we're being hit, and I pushed him down. And I turned around on Joey, and boom, he got it through the side window, and he went down.
Joey Stanfa has taken a bullet in the cheek. Aldrich takes evasive action.
I played with stop and go with him, you know. I stopped and go enough to get behind him, right on the bumper.
The stop-start tactic works. Thwarted, the gunmen drive off. John Stanfa is unscathed. His son recovers, but Aldrich is appalled by the hit.
What they pulled on this Schuylkill Expressway was just the stupidest move I've ever seen in my life. I said, this is going to bring every authority, every badge in the world. You know, they could have killed 50 people. I said, you know, John, it's the beginning of the end.
Aldrich is proved right. The war attracts too much heat. The Philadelphia Mafia has lost sight of the traditional commandment: respect those appointed above you. For the Philly mob, the writing is on the wall.
It was about greed. It was about the almighty dollar. As long as you were bringing a bag full of money, you could have broke any rule that you wanted.